Yotes win 5-2 against the San Jose Sharks. I'm not going to talk about the game. Kind of. I'm not going to do that this time. I've done that enough. I need to talk about something else. Okay, I have a bit of a background in theater-ish, kind of. I like theater. I went to a theater school. I learned a bit about theater, a little bit, but, you know, it's enough that I feel confident in talking about this. There is a thing in theater, in improv specifically, called yes and. And how does this relate to hockey? We'll get to it. So yes and is a rule in improv where essentially you have to give your scene partner something to work with by saying essentially yes and. So for example, you want to watch that hockey game tonight? Yes, and I'll bring the beer. That would be an example of properly used improv. That would be an example of yes and, because you're agreeing but you're also adding to. As opposed to, hey, you want to go to the hockey game tonight? Nah, I'm not feeling it. At that point, what's the scene partner on the first side supposed to do? Because suddenly it's on the first person to create something new and hope that the second person, to make it entertaining, goes along with it. And I think in the sport of hockey, as well as other sports, but definitely the sport of hockey, that's kind of, it's a similar situation. First, I'm going to talk about the actual game itself in regards to yes and. And that is teammates. They have to be willing to do this yes and thing for the team to function. That's communication. Even if it's not spoken words, it's still a form of communication. It's a form of trust. I'm going to pass this puck to you. Yes, and I'm going to take it to the other end of the ice and score. That kind of idea. And the difference, I think, between actual improv and this is this, you have someone that's trying to shut you down. The only real comparison between improv and sports that I could think of is there's a type of improv that you can do. You've got two scene partners on stage, but there's a third one on the side. And every so often, if one character doesn't say something quite to the liking of this person, they can yell, new word, new phrase, new choice, things like that. And the person has to oblige with that and change up their tune. In the same right, the opposing team is that third party. So if we were to translate the sport itself onto the stage in that concept, I'm going to pass this puck to you. Yes, and I'll take it and score. New choice. I'm going to dump it into the zone. New choice. I'm going to give the puck to the other team. That kind of idea. The defense of the other team is that new choice person. It's the person who puts themselves in the situation so that a new scene has to occur. You go from the offensive scene, the scene where you're about to score a goal and there's a mad scramble in front of the net, and then it goes the other way, new scene. Now you're on the defensive. You have to go back. You have to rush and match them. You have to get back before they score, and then you strip them of the puck and you go back the other way, new scene. And then in the same right, all in all, this is honestly just a video of my beef with the broadcasters bit, except it's not beef in this one. At the same time, the broadcasters have to do a bit of the same. And that showed very well in this broadcast that I watched. It's the Sharks broadcast, because God forbid I get the Coyotes broadcast. But they surprised me a bit in this one. Because, like, obviously you don't necessarily just say yes and. It doesn't have to be that. Want to go to the game tonight? I already started the truck. That kind of idea. And that's kind of what happened in the broadcast. And you can do that with negative things too. That's kind of what surprised me in this one. The broadcast would talk about something that the Sharks did that they probably shouldn't have done. One such example is on one of the goals, the Sharks were puck looking. They were puck watching. And that allowed O'Brien to rush into the slot and get a shot off that ended up going in. And one of the Sharks broadcasters said, hey, that's a problem. And the guy beside him, this is what shocked me. The guy beside him goes, basically, yes, and this is how we fix it. This is how they can go ahead and fix it. This is how they can go and fix the problem if they do this thing just slightly differently. And the same thing happened the other way. The Coyotes would do something wrong. It wasn't quite in the same right, because I don't expect the opposition to give us advice. That's kind of, you don't do that. But the Coyotes would do something wrong. The Sharks would capitalize. They would score. And the words after everything's replayed and we get back to the play were, now expect the Coyotes to push back. Yes, the Sharks scored, and be prepared for it to go the other way. And I think broadcast as a whole needs more of this. Too often I've seen, like, if you look at any homers, think Colorado, Boston, Washington, the broadcasters who will glorify their team while putting down the other team. Or you look at the teams who kind of aren't doing good right now. Their broadcasters will criticize their own team, maybe not necessarily lift up the other team, but they will really put down their own team. There's got to be a fine line that's kind of danced on, and I think the Sharks did it the best tonight. Because it has to be understood that in a sport like this, there is no guarantees. There is no, well, we suck, we're going to lose, and there is no, we're amazing, we're going to win. There is, until the final buzzer ends and there is a score on the board, a 50-50 chance that someone wins. Don't tell the gamblers that. But is it not basically the broadcaster's job? I know, like, part of it is like, oh, well, we are going to tell you the game that you might not be able to see because the puck is too small to see it. But there's a level of entertainment to it, too. You have to give your viewers something to watch, and what better than developing a storyline? For Ovechkin, it's going to try to take Gretzky's place as the number one scorer. For the top 16 teams, it's going to be the playoffs coming up next week. There's always a storyline. And playing that yes and game adds to that storyline. There's the storyline, just for the sake of argument, if you look at last year. The Florida Panthers are going to the Stanley Cup final to play for the Stanley Cup, being an underdog team. Yes, and expect Vegas to shut that down. They don't want this underdog team to go all the way. They don't want to be beaten by someone who shouldn't be here. And I know I said, like, not even 2 minutes ago, it might be more than 2 minutes ago, I don't know, that going into it, it's 50-50. But there is still the storyline. There is, in essence, a good guy and a bad guy. Now, who is who? We don't know. It depends on which broadcast you watch, quite frankly. But there's always that storyline. You can still give praise to the villain. You can still give criticism to the hero. Take, for example, the Miracle movie. U.S. defeats Russia. And it's a huge spectacle in how America goes and wins the world championship. But it's not undermined. It's actually amplified in the greatness of the American team, but it's not undermined the hurdles that they have to overcome. It's not undermined that the villain, the Russians, are this amazing team that's so hard to overcome. It's not bad and it's not distasteful to praise the villains. But there has to be a villain and there has to be a hero. And that villain will be heroes to someone. And that hero will be villains to someone else. That's just the world of sports. But it's up to the broadcaster, the analyst, to really develop that. While understanding that even though one is the hero, one is the villain, both of them go in equal. Until the first goal is scored, the chance is 50-50. And that was demonstrated really well tonight in San Jose. So I just wanted to talk about that because, you know, I'm too used to just watch game, put it on digital paper, read digital paper, throw it at the camera. I felt like doing something a little bit different and a little bit, like, different to hockey in general. I don't think we really talk about the theatrics that come of this. We know about storyline. We know about the similarities between, like, TV and then this stuff. But we don't quite have the same understanding as to, like, how important knowing some certain theater things are to the actual product of the game. Maybe not to the players. The players might not need to know this, but definitely the broadcast. They are the theater part of the sports production. So I just figured I'd do something a bit different. And that's all for now. Next game should be on Tuesday, and I'm going to guess that we are playing the Seattle Kraken. I haven't looked it up. I'm pretty sure we're playing the Seattle Kraken, and then we have a back-to-back where we play Vancouver. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But in the meantime, stay howling and go Yotes. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, you can give it a thumbs up. I'm going to skip the if you didn't like what you saw because it's not important. I can't promise there will be more of this. It's honestly very much different to what I'm used to doing. So, be used to some of my other videos where it's either me yelling or me praising the team. One of the two. It's kind of like Steve Dangle. That kind of idea. So if you want to see more Steve Dangle-esque stuff, for sure, hit the subscribe button and share this with your friends. I think this might be something interesting that maybe some people haven't considered. Either way, I'll be back.